Jerry and Charlie riding through the airwaves, bringing you the heat. Come on, pull your mustache. Now get up out your seat. They're bringing you all things Mets. They're bringing you all things Mets. They're bringing you all things Mets. Now you're listening to Shea Station.
Today is Tuesday, December 16th, the 240th episode of Shea Station. And we got a little bit of news to cover. And more importantly, we have to hear from the public. It is a voicemail episode. We're very excited. Over 50 people called in to let us know how they're feeling about a very chaotic Mets offseason. Before we get to that, we got some cleaning up to do. I'm one of your co-hosts, Jack, aka Jolly Olive, and joining me is Jerry Blevins with a jawline that could cut glass. Jerry, how you doing?
I'm doing well, man. You always compliment. I might just be keeping this clean-shaven look for a little bit. If
you mix up your looks. I respect that.
If you're just going to be, throwing compliments.
People in the calls commenting on it too, believe it or not. I don't know how many of those made it to the final cut, but there were some commentary.
Oh, send them my way. I have to keep them. That'll be my Christmas gift, my stocking stuffer.
There you go.
Little ego boost.
Gas yourself up. And speaking of ego boost, I would be remiss if I did not mention this. In a week of what was a lot of sadness, a lot of confusion, a lot of anger, there was one bright spot, and it was the fact that the Shea Station podcast in year 5 of doing this, or whatever it is, just set the mark for our highest viewed episode ever and our highest viewed live stream ever. Now, the topics of those were Mets losing Edwin Diaz and then losing Pete Alonso, but we just want to say that we really appreciate you guys still tuning in after all this time. Shea Station has had its ups and downs, but it's very cool to see that we can still achieve new peaks in 2025. So we're excited about that and happy and excited to do more for you guys.
Thank you. I agree. That's pretty cool to see our, most viewed, most listened to episode, regardless of content.
Yeah.
The people are interested and want to hear from us. I like it. Thank you.
Pretty cool. And then one last thing, of course, we have to mention the sponsor of this episode and every episode of Shea Station, which is Field of Dreams Whiskey. You guys know it. We are 9 days removed from Christmas. If you're not panicking about your Christmas presents, you should be. And luckily, Jerry Blevins has got a product that's got you covered. He just held it up to his damn camera. Field of Dreams. They make the best whiskey in the biz. And they have a brand new line, the 2025 All-Star Whiskey, the largest blend of whiskey in the history of whiskey, 30 distilleries in one bottle, too many to count, but if you need some help counting, it's for all 30 MLB teams. It's an average age of 7 years, which means it's going to taste real good, 108 proof, all the good stuff, only 10,000 bottles available nationwide. So I know what you're thinking. I need to get my paws on a bottle right now. And you can do just that by clicking the link in the description right now and placing an order. Get it for your mom. Get it for your dad. Get it for your son. Get it for you. Treat yourself this Christmas. Whatever you do, drink fieldofdreamswhiskey.com. Get yourself a bottle today. It is an A-grade product from yours truly, Jerry Blevins.
Oh, thank you, man. Get a hat. Do that. Go to the website. Order some merch. That'll be good. I'm not wearing it today for some reason.
That's okay. I click on literally any other episode of Shea Station within the last year. You're wearing that damn hat.
They gotta push.
Exactly. I respect it. Respect the grind. All right. So we do have a little bit of news to chew on before we dive into all things voicemails. And that is the Mets actually adding someone to the team for a change. It's been a lot of subtractions, and that's been a little exhausting, but the Mets did make a splash earlier this week. They signed Jorge Polanco to a 2-year, $40 million deal. It might be an eye-popping amount of money when you consider Jorge Polanco's recent track record. Did you know Jorge Polanco's been in the league for 12 years? Because I looked at his page and I was like, wow, 12 years. He's played shortstop, he's played second base, but apparently for the Mets, he will be playing first base and DH. You might scoff at that notion, but when you look at his offensive numbers from last year, you might feel a little bit better. 26 home runs and 821 OPS, an OPS that was 34% better than league average. And oh yeah, 2 home runs against Tarek Skubal in the playoffs doesn't sound too bad at all. The Mets were basically in a bidding war with the Seattle Mariners. They won a bidding war for a change, which was nice. And right now, per roster resource, Polanco is slotted in to be the cleanup hitter, switch hitter at the DH spot for the Mets. I know a lot of people have been talking about, well, how can you make this move when you just lost Alonso? This doesn't feel as good. But I'm at the point where I'm just happy that the Mets are adding to this team and we can start to begin to see a semblance of a vision for the 2026 roster.
I agree, man. It's nice to see some things come together. Jorge Polanco, solid hitter, switch hitter. He batted cleanup for the Mariners in their playoff run. Like
Right.
the guy can hit. He had a great season last year offensively. Um, he makes the team better. It's not Pete Alonso. Let's not, kid ourselves, but I
Sure.
think they're starting to piece this in the aggregate. There's more moves to be made. He's a good addition. He makes your team better. Clutch, he came up clutch big time for the Mariners throughout the season, especially in that run. He's a good ball player. It'll be interesting to see him play first base. I'll be honest. He's never done it,
Yeah.
at least in the big leagues. Doesn't give off first base vibes when you're looking at him. But they've been known to do some things defensively, David Stern's teams, to try to piece it together. He'll be solid. He's going to be at least Pete Alonso defensively at first base, I would assume. Guy that can pick it, play third base. You can do the same thing at first base. So
Right.
it's not the easiest position. There's a lot of subtleties, but he's been in the infield his whole life. I think it'll be a smooth transition. A good addition, solid hitter, a good piece to add.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at too. I mean, switch hitter, and he doesn't really have a weak side. He was above an 800 OPS on both sides. He just set his best career mark in average exit velocity. So there's a lot of things behind the curtain that you can point to and say, well, this guy doesn't really seem like he's showing signs of slowing down. Only entering his age 32 season too. It's not like he's like deep into his 30s or anything. One thing I found interesting, he had one of the lower K rates in baseball last year. 15.6 strikeout rate was a top 30 mark in all of baseball among qualified hitters. So he puts the bat on the ball, which is nice. There's been a lot discussed about his defense, though, because a thing that David Stern said a lot in his press conference at the end of the season, which we have mentioned on the show as well, is the term run prevention. He wanted to improve the team's defense. That's how you can make some sense of the Marcus Semien move for Brandon Nimmo. That's how you can make some sense about them wanting to move on from Pete Alonso, albeit you're sacrificing a lot of offense there. With Jorge Polanco, you look at his defensive numbers, and they're not great. I think the good thing is that Jorge Polanco, unless things go really wrong, is not going to be playing second base for this team because we still roster Marcus Semien, Jeff McNeil, Luis Angel Acuna. There's a lot of guys above him on the defensive depth chart there. You're going to be seeing him at third base, first base, and probably most of all, my guess is DH, because I still do think in a perfect world, if the Mets do not add a first baseman in the offseason, which they still might, there's guys out there. I think it's going to be Mark Vientos. I think they're going to really give that a shot in spring training and really try to get that under him, because that paves the way for Beatty. There's no more tug of war playing time, and hopefully Mark Vientos can produce better if he knows he has a role on this team that's guaranteed every day. I don't know. I saw a lot of reporting with Polanco at first base. I don't really see it. I don't understand trying to teach a guy a new position at age 32. I know that he's played, I think, like 6 games of first base at the major league level, and I'm sure
More. I thought it was 0. So
yeah,
that's
I mean,
good.
it's essentially 0, and I'm sure that he would be, like you said, Pete Alonso level, but the Mets are trying to improve from Pete Alonso level, so I'm hoping that this is not the final plan for the Mets here. But if nothing else, you get a good bat. This lineup desperately needed a good bat in the middle of the order. They still need more. We're not, taking a victory lap and saying job well done here. There's plenty to address on this 26-man roster still, but adding the second switch hit bat to this lineup to complement Francisco Lindor, giving Juan Soto some semblance of protection behind him with 26 home runs added to the lineup, especially in a ballpark which was discussed as, an impossible place to hit for a while. That was the notion that Seattle was carrying. Jorge Polanco went there and did it for a couple of years. So a nice ad for the Mets here at $20 million a year. I was a little shocked by the AAV, but then yesterday the Braves signed Ha-Seong Kim for 1 year and $20 million, which is the same AAV. He's coming off a year where he played 60 games and didn't really do much of anything along the way. So prices are high. The Mets can afford those prices. We know this. And they add Jorge Polanco, who's coming off a career year. One more thing to note, OPS of 740 with 2 strikes in the 2025 season. Good 2-strike hitter. This is a Mets lineup that's going to thrive on contact, and Jorge Polanco complements that formula a lot. So hopefully this is just the beginning of the domino effect of a lot of other moves and a lot of other Shea Station episodes to come, hopefully in the coming weeks. I don't really want to wait till January, but we'll see. We'll see what David Stearns has up his sleeve.
I agree. This gives them some opportunity to still be versatile. Right now they have him slotted into first base DH. That I like the fact that they mentioned DH.
Yeah.
I think that might be something, especially as he gets older at 32, to save his legs, to keep him at the DH spot. To me, it would be perfect if he were a DH. This would be the what could have been with Jesse Winker, except he is a switch hitter, so you don't have to worry about Starling Marte / Jesse Winker, whatever combination you're going to do there. This could just be your guy that fills in at first base or third base or second base, whatever, can come in, still bat in the heart of the order, but give some guys a breather and slot them in at that DH spot.
Yeah, and I mean, we go back to 2022 when me and you wanted Kyle Schwarber on the team. Go back a couple of years with all the options that were out there. I mean, even guys like Marcelo Ozuna that hit the market before. The Mets have never really taken full advantage, it feels like, of the DH spot since it's been implemented in the National League. It's been all these sort of weird platoons like Vogelback and Ruff, and then Winker and Vientos last year. We've never had a true primary DH, and that can hamstring your roster a little bit. But also, if the guy's hitting 30 home runs and is a switch hitter with an 800 OPS, sign me the hell up.
Yeah, how dare you bring up Darren Ruff's name on
I
this
don't think we've ever mentioned it on this podcast in like 3 years. And he came up in conversation the other day, and I was like, oh my God. JD Davis, there's a bunch of these that you can go back to where the Mets tried to plug in a guy who didn't really have a defensive asset into this DH role, and it just didn't work. And hopefully Polanco can be the first real, DH, true DH of the Mets in the 2020s. That'd be nice.
100%. This is what the best case scenario would have been for any of those combinations moving forward. This is, again, I think you nailed it. They need another piece, maybe a true first baseman.
Yeah.
To make this make more sense. But for him to be that DH that can switch hitting DH, that can mash and doesn't strike out, I think it would be an awesome addition. They do still need more pieces. So.
Yeah, and I wonder if that ends up being I saw Christian Walker was floated yesterday. I know he's not coming off a great year by any means, but he does solve the problem of you just added a 3-time Gold Glover at first base to your roster. Very good. If he can hit league average, great. I don't know what the Mets do, but another option flew off the board yesterday in Josh Bell. So I think we're going to get a move soon if there is going to be a move. I don't really know what that is though.
Christian Walker would be interesting. That would be the defensive run saved kind of run prevention move, and he's not going to be worse than he was last year offensively, I'll tell you that. And he kind of turned it on after one of the roughest starts.
Yeah.
There must be a curse over there
with first base. Yeah, I know. Ever since Yuli, it's been Jose Abreu, it's been I think John Singleton for a little bit. Now
he left. Yeah, they left some voodoo over there at first base because guys have just fallen off there. Yeah. I mean, Christian Walker was, what did he hit? 40 the year? Did he hit 40? Oh, no, he got hurt.
He was I think he's had a 30 homer season. Yeah, he had a 33, 103, and then a 26 homer season.
He was fantastic for Arizona. Then he became a free agent. He was older.
Yeah.
I think he felt a lot of pressure. I mean, coming to New York isn't going to ease that pressure. But having a lineup like that will definitely ease that pressure where you're not, you play a good first base and then you hit 20, 25. I think it would be good. That's interesting to me for a trade. It probably wouldn't take much for them besides taking on payroll.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
It'll be 2 years at $40 million right now, $20 million AAV, which is the same contract that Polanco just signed. And to your point before, 660 OPS in the first half for Walker, 799 in the second half. That was because of a 110-point jump in slug. So maybe it was just getting accustomed to Minute Maid Park. I don't know really what was the situation there. I didn't pay too close of attention. But what I do know is that Christian Walker's glove has not aged. It's been really good ever since. So maybe the Mets make that happen. Maybe it's something we're not even thinking of. There's been Mets-Padres trade talk. I don't even know what to make of that because Mason Miller got floated, and I was like, didn't you just get him for the top prospect in baseball? Now you already want to sell him. I don't know. But the Mets, it feels like a rumor comes out about them every day, so I'm sure we'll be back on these mics soon enough talking about something else.
Last thing, I would love to see Mason Miller come over. He's
that'd be awesome. I wouldn't really
one
get
of my
it,
favorite players to watch play baseball.
Yeah.
Just absolute electricity coming out of that guy's hand.
Yeah.
Cool. He's got a cool approach. That would be fun.
I mean, that would take this bullpen from a net negative to an instant net positive because then everybody slides down a rung and Mason Miller's your closer. You go back to having the best closer in baseball. It'd be great. I don't know how they pull that off, but we'll see, I guess.
We'll see.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, so that's pretty much all we got on Polanco there. There's only so much you can say without the complimentary moves that come behind it. But the good news is that we've loaded this show with plenty of voicemails from you guys. I spent last night an hour listening to your wonderful voices. We couldn't bring on everybody. We sifted it down to 7 voicemails that I'm going to show Jerry for the first time on the show. You're going to get his live reaction. Plenty of great questions. I tried to go around the player specific things because you can't read into rumors too much. You don't want to waste too much airtime with that kind of stuff. I would try to go for more overarching stuff that I thought could lead to some good discussions. And I think we'll start with one of the simpler calls on today's list, which comes from Claire. So here's our first call from Claire.
Hey, Jolly and Jerry, it's Claire. So now that David Stearns has officially ruined Christmas for all Mets fans, I'm wondering what you guys think this team will realistically look like on opening day and how many wins this team could realistically get next season. Because right now the depression makes me think we're going to get like 50 wins for the whole season. Thanks. Bye.
Claire, I don't think it's going to be as bad as 50 wins, but I will spin this question as, what do you think the Mets will add? You can just give me positions. You don't need to give me names. Like, do you think they add a starting pitcher, a first baseman, whatever, and then a win expectation for them next season? Do you want me to go first, or would you let you take the reins, Mr.
I want
Blevins?
you to go first since I haven't had a minute to think about it. Shout out to Claire. Happy holidays. Happy Hanukkah to our Jewish listeners and watchers. What a nice surprise. A female voice. I like hearing from it.
There were a few. Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah, I like it. I'm interested to see where you go. I kind of have a ballpark of what I'm thinking, so I'll let you shoot first.
Yeah, so I think with me, I've fully set into the mindset that the Mets are going to let the kids play next year. I think you're going to see a lot of Jet Williams, a lot of Carson Bench, and a lot of the young arms we saw last year if they don't pull off one of these massive trades. And with every passing day, I just view it as a little bit less likely. So in terms of outside additions, I do think they're going to add a couple more bullpen pieces. Probably middle relievers, though. I don't think anyone's going to usurp Devin Williams or AJ Minter on the depth chart. I think it's going to be guys in between them. I think in terms of starting pitching, I'm not going to be super surprised if they don't add someone. They have, as I look at it right now, like 9 starting pitchers on their depth chart when you add in guys like Christian Scott, Brandon Sproat, Jonah Tong as options. I think they're going to look to those guys and not get into the free agent pitching market because it is expensive. See Dylan Cease's 7-year, $210 deal coming off one of his worst seasons. And then for me, it's a power bat in the middle of the lineup, a first baseman. I don't know who it is. I don't know that they entered the year with Mark Vientos as the slotted first baseman. Right now, that's what they have is their 5-hole. But I think if you replace Vientos with someone a little bit more proven, with a little bit more of a track record, you can look at the lineup a lot differently of Lindor, Semien, Soto, Polanco, whoever this mystery bat is, and then Alvarez behind them, who I still think has more and more in the tank. And then you get to guys like McNeil and Beatty, who are coming off decent years. You can cobble together a productive lineup there, and hopefully your pitching just performed better than it did last year, because I do think this pitching staff is capable of way better when Manaea is healthy and Sang is healthy and McLean gets a full season. As it stands, my expectations for them, I think they're right around where they were last year, 84 to 86 wins. But you know what? In a weak National League, that might just be enough to get you into the wild card race if the Mets don't have a bigger move up their sleeve. So that's kind of where I'm at, a first baseman and a couple of relievers for me.
I thank you for answering first. I thought I would have a different answer, and I do.
Okay.
I think I truly believe, and this is, again, speculation. I'm not asking people.
This is what we do. We're
their plans
speculating,
are.
baby. That's all it is.
I wouldn't. Here's the thing. Like, I'm not talking to the coaching staff or the front office asking them what their plans are, because they don't have anything set in stone yet. So it's all speculation on their part too.
Right.
They have a lot of moving pieces. They could make a lot of different moves, trade signings. I do think that they're okay with putting Mark Vientos at first base for now.
Okay.
Polanco being your everyday DH, and then if Vientos isn't working out, they move along, put Polanco at first base, and then figure it out elsewhere.
Yeah.
I think they want to. I think they want a left fielder or a center fielder.
Okay. Interesting.
You know, I truly think they want one more impact bat. Maybe not as high impact as we want, but I don't see them having Carson Bench to start the year in center field. Could be wrong. They've been talking a lot about him. I don't know if he's ready. You got to see it at that level.
Yeah.
And I don't think Jeff McNeil is your everyday left fielder. Like, I think they have some pieces that they have to move. There's Luis Angel Acuna. There's Jeff McNeil. There's Ronnie Mauricio, there's Mark Viento. Something's got to give
Yeah.
in those young guys. Other teams are going to pick the guys that they want, so they have ways to move them. So I think a left fielder or a center fielder's coming. I don't believe it's going to be Cody Bellinger.
I don't either.
I don't. I just don't see them making that move. They will have a smaller signing with the ability to bring up a Jet Williams or a Carson Bench if somebody's just, knocking that door down. And then I see a possible move in the starting rotation, maybe a smaller addition via trade because again, they have a lot of pieces that they have to move on from, make decisions on, and then they need at least one more arm in the bullpen to solidify that. They got a lot more options than they did last year, but they'll figure it out. So one outfielder,
Yep.
center fielder or left fielder, a starting pitcher of some sorts to solidify that. That I think it's just one if they make one.
Yeah.
And then at least one bullpen arm.
I like the direction you took that because I didn't process for a second. Jeff McNeil is currently our starting left fielder. I did a little bit of dreaming on bringing back Harrison Bader because if Bader can play center and Bench
That's a
can
move
play
that makes
left,
sense.
it kind of makes sense to me. It fits their 3-year window. I think we're in agreement on Bellinger because everything they're doing right now directly contradicts giving someone a 6+ year contract, which is what it's going to take to get Cody Bellinger, even if he does fit what your team needs right now in first base, center field, and left field. I don't see them making that commitment because all they've done is try and scrub the books beyond 2028. And Bellinger would add, $25 million or more to those books. For the starting pitcher, Freddie Peralta kind of makes sense in my brain of if you want to do this like low committal but high upside guy, Peralta seems like he would be a fit. And then I think it's obvious that they need to add more to this bullpen. I don't know if it's going to be a true guy on a major league deal or this stockpile of arms that they did last year. I could see either happening, but it sounds like we're in a pretty similar boat of, and I want to say this because a lot of Mets fans called in and said, we got to get Tucker, we got to get Bellinger, we got to trade for Skubal and extend him, all this stuff. Until it happens, I don't think it's going to happen because everything they've shown us from this offseason has been we're trying to fully reset this core and build this team around Soto. And in doing that, we don't want to just tie ourselves into some of these longer contracts like we've been doing.
Truth.
Yeah.
I haven't given my record on
Yeah, I
where
wanted
they
to let
stand
you
right now.
finalize.
I think they're an 80-win team. I think they're scraping by about, not too far off from you, but I think they're pushing 500 right now. They need to solidify who they are. There's too many moving parts, too many question marks that will be answered at some point. They're about 80 wins right now. Better than 50, Claire.
Yeah, better than 50. I think that's important.
I think Juan Soto's a 50 WAR player on his own.
And what was I going to say? And we've said it so many times on this show, when the Mets enter a season with no expectations, they usually perform. When they enter a season with a lot of expectations, like last year, like 2023, they usually don't. So 2024, I think we kind of viewed it in a similar lens of like, what is this team? Are they anything? For a while they weren't, and then for a while they were really special.
So, Claire, I know he feels like David Stern ruined your Christmas, but he kind of gave you a sneak preview at the end of fall. So, you're going to have Nolan McLean. You're going to get to watch this every day. So, if I could bring this up for you, you're going to be able to watch Nolan McLean make a start every 5th day. You're going to be able to watch, possibly Jonah Tong, Brandon Sproat, the return of Christian Scott. You have those storylines. Plus, watching Juan Soto hit.
It's not too bad.
The excitingness of Francisco Lindor. You're going to watch Marcus Semien play defense, which is a joy. And hopefully, this is the launching pad for what you and I especially have been saying is Francisco Alvarez, I think, is a budding superstar. I really, truly do. If this guy can stay healthy
Yes.
and stay in that mindset, which I think is moving positively, I truly think this is, Cal Raleigh style, maybe not MVP, but a superstar in the catching form. And he's 24 now.
He's 20. You took the words out of my mouth. He's 24 fucking years
I
old.
made my debut, and
Yeah.
he's in year 6.
It's crazy. And my 2 wishes for Francisco Alvarez this year: don't slide head first, and put your left hand or your right hand behind your back, and you will play 150 games. Promise.
I like that.
Yeah. Your talk of the young guys in the rotation leads perfectly into our next question, our next voicemail from Jackson in Florida.
Hi, I'm Jackson, lifelong Florida Mets fan here. I think my biggest question is like, what? So there's lots of talks about going and getting like a frontline starter, right? Whether that's a Tarek Skubal, whether that's a Framber Valdez, whatever, right? My question is like, what does the rotation actually look like after that? Because I think the assumption is you have Nolan McLean. I would put him in that opening day rotation. I'm assuming Clay Holmes makes it. You've got Sean Manaea, you've got Kodai Senga, you've got Brandon Sproat, Jonah Tong, you've got presumably another David Stearns offseason project. Like, I feel like we're in a weird spot where like there's so many starters that we have. I even mentioned Christian Scott, and like so many starters that we could potentially get that I don't know what that rotation actually looks like. And like David Peterson's been floated in trade talks. Like, I don't know. I guess I'm just curious as to where this rotation actually goes and what you think it would look like on opening day.
So yeah, this is a great question, and kind of what I alluded to before of like, I don't know that the Mets are going to add a starting pitcher because they have so many on their depth chart. The problem is that all of these guys have some sort of concern with them, whether they are a rookie of some kind or they're coming off a weird year where they were injured or underperforming and all this. So I think I want to round this question out by just saying, give me your starting 5 or starting 6 if the Mets are performing at their best level based on what you've seen this offseason and based on what is currently in their system. I'll ask you again. Do you want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
I'll go first this time.
Sweet.
This is more my area of expertise.
Of course.
I've been kind of thinking about it on the same level. So thank you, Jackson. Florida Mets.
Nice.
They're in there. They're everywhere. So this one is kind of an easy one for me, and I might cheat and then add a name.
Okay.
Because the beginning of
I don't
the
think
season,
that's cheating though. If you think they're going to add someone exterior, then you add them in.
The way I'm going to cheat is they only need 4 starters to start the year.
Right.
Because of the way the schedule works, because of the unknowns in the weather, there's a lot of off days. They can do it with 4 starters and move guy to the bullpen. So I'm going to name it the 4 for sure that start the season and let things go out. So for me, it's an easy. Clay Holmes is in there. David Peterson is in there. Barring a move. Nolan McLean is probably the ace, but he'll probably be. I think Clay Holmes might get opening day nod as of now.
Sure.
Peterson, McLean. I think Manaea has to be the guy too. I think they're going to give him, another chance. I think his upside is still there, but he can be moved to the bullpen if need be. So that's my 4: Holmes, McLean, Peterson, Manaea. That gives a chance for. When they need a 5th for Brandon Sproat to be there, I think it could be him, maybe the long guy, back and forth, figuring that out. And then from there, I think Jonah Tong just needs a little bit of seasoning in the minor leagues just to kind of get that confidence back and shake off the I'm in the big leagues, like the bright lights. He was enjoying himself, but I think he looked like a kid that felt like he was at the big, the adult table when he felt like he should belong at the little kids table. So I think he'll be good. But that's easy. That's easy for me. I think those are the 4 without making any moves. Those are the 4 names.
I'm glad it's easy for you because this is something that I grapple with a lot, and I still don't really have a good answer. I do agree with your sentiment that Tong needs a little bit more seasoning. I think he just needs a 3rd pitch, really. And if he doesn't have one, I have trouble seeing the outlook as a starting pitcher long term. Christian Scott really interests me because what we saw from him early in that 2024 season was really, really special. The strikeout potential. I think he probably starts at AAA as well. That just makes sense to get him rehabbed, get him ramped up. Tyler McGill, kind of same sentiment there. I don't know how much we're going to see of him at all this season because he's coming off a pretty significant injury. Those guys are shoo-ins for the minor leagues, in my opinion. The question for me becomes, if the Mets don't end up with a bullpen that they feel like they can, really feel good about, do you ramp up Clay Holmes and convert him back to a reliever? I think that is a realistic option for this team because he's under a contract where I don't think the price is high for, what Clay Holmes has demonstrated he can do as a reliever, and the Mets infield defense is improving marginally from what it was last year. The thing is, you can't do that midseason. I saw a lot of people saying midseason, we got to move Holmes back to the bullpen. That's not how that works. He needs at least, I think, a month to ramp up and get his velocity back to where it was. Because remember, he's throwing 96 to 98 out of the bullpen and closer to 94 to 95 as a starting pitcher, which makes perfect sense. So for me, I have Holmes in the rotation because I'm assuming the Mets will do things to address this bullpen. I have Manaea in there because he's making $25 million a year and he says he's healthy, so he should be pitching in the rotation. I have Senga because I know they're shopping him, but I don't think it makes sense to trade him. I don't think a team would offer what the Mets are thinking they would offer to get Senga coming off his weird year. So those three are in there for me. I have McClain because McClain has fully earned that spot. He's shown you that he's major league ready. He might even start opening day for me. And then I'm going to add a fifth just to do the typical fifth man rotation. And I think this is a trade. I think it's either going to be, if I had to make a prediction, Freddie Peralta or Pablo Lopez. I think that the Joe Ryans and the Tarek Skubals are just a little too out there. And if those guys are available, the Mets are not going to be the winning team, if I had to guess, because there are just better farm systems out there like the Red Sox that need the same thing and can get that job done, similar to what happened to the Mets last year with Garrett Crochet. Whereas a guy like Peralta, and the Mets have dealt with the Brewers before, or a guy like Pablo Lopez who has money attached to him that the Mets could take on, feel a little bit more realistic to me. Those guys could really anchor your rotation. You pair him up with McClain, you pair him up with Clay Holmes. Now you have a nice top three. Manaya and Senga have a little bit less pressure on them. Hopefully they can return to form, and suddenly the Mets rotation can be a strength. So if nothing else, they have a lot of depth, and I think they have an area to improve and possibly make a trade.
I like that. I totally forgot about Senga. I didn't even think about that one.
Right, because he's kind of a forgotten man right now.
I mean, it all depends on how his offseason workouts are going. You know, the Mets have a new pitching regime,
Right.
so I'm not sure how they view him. He was atrocious last year. I know his numbers to start the year were incredible,
Yep.
but it was smoke and mirrors, I've been saying. I don't know what happened to him. I love him as a pitcher. If he can come back to that form a little bit, we'll be able to tell a lot in spring training. But I don't know if he's durable enough to go to the bullpen, but that's an interesting move. He's either traded in the rotation or in the bullpen. Like, he's got to be in the big league somewhere. I don't think he takes another option to move down like he did last year. I don't know. The spring training will tell a lot.
Yeah, I mean, Senga, I use him as the perfect example of why you should never just scoreboard or box score watch. You need to watch the guy pitch. And, even in the starts where Senga was like a sub-2 ERA and going, 5 2/3 or 6 innings every time, they was not clean. It never felt clean. Really, this entire 2025 season, it felt like he only had command of one pitch, that being the ghost fork, which is supposed to be thrown for a ball. So I don't know if I actually do know. It is a mechanical issue. We could all see that. It's more a matter of, is Senga fully healthy, and can he get to a point where he is fully healthy again? Because the numbers on the page are great, but the performance on the field was uneasy at best.
Don't write him off, though. The guy's competitive.
Yeah.
I expect him to kind of bounce back. He's going to be age 33, so there are health issues in his entire history. Last year we saw it. The year before that we saw it. So I'm not writing him off, though. The guy has all-star ceiling, so we'll see.
And in the same way, I'm not really going to write off Sean Manaea either. I know his numbers last year were tough. He dealt with injuries last year as well. His numbers in his first 50 pitches are so much better than the 50 pitches beyond that, which just makes me think that the guy was fatigued and not pitching fully healthy. Especially, I always think back to that very first appearance he made. I think it was against the Royals, where we basically piggybacked him and Holmes. He struck out 7 dudes in a row, and he just looked like Sean Manaea. I think that guy's still in there somewhere. It's just a matter of, is he still going to be able to be, a 6-inning starter or workhorse like he was in 2024? Or do the Mets need to change their outlook, possibly adapt to a 6-man rotation? I don't know. There's a lot of options, which I think is a good thing. But the answer as to what the starting 5 or 6 is right now still remains pretty unclear to me until we see sort of one of these domino moves where you see someone enter the top of the rotation or something like that. Okay. I want to get your thoughts on this, Jerry, because I've seen this sentiment floated around a lot. This caller did not identify themselves, so we don't have a name.
Make one up.
But this is going back to a lot of the events of last week.
Make up a name real quick.
Oh, make up a name? I'll give this guy a name of, he's Marcus, but he's Marcus with a K. So kind of like Marcus Semien, but not quite.
Okay.
Marcus with a K.
Hi, Jack and Jerry. First time, long time. In regards to the off season, I think Stearns has done what I wanted him to do and what I think his plan was all along since he took over, in that blowing up the core that had been here for a while but hadn't won anything, and bringing in his guys who he feels comfortable building the team around. And I think this would have happened in the summer of 2024, but the team being competitive changed that. But anyway, I'm excited to see where this offseason goes from here. I trust in Stearns, and I'd like to see him be able to see his roster turnover through. Thank you.
So yeah, this is the one thing that I kind of regret we didn't really talk about when we chatted about Alonso and Diaz last week, just because we literally recorded that, 30 minutes after Alonso left, and it was raw emotion. I still think it was a good show for what it was, but we didn't really talk about long-term outlook. And the growing sentiment I saw, 24 hours removed from everyone being sad about Pete was, well, this was kind of always the plan, but the 2024 Mets being a team full of veterans that pulled themselves out of a deep hole kind of messed things up in a weird way for David Stearns, who probably was brought in to disassemble a lot of things on this roster. So I want to ask you two questions here to spin it from this. One, do you believe in the sentiment that the 2024 Mets were essentially supposed to be uncompetitive and torn down at the deadline? Remember, it was a lot of one-year deals, a lot of rental guys that ended up overperforming. And two, does that give you any optimism moving forward of like, well, now David Stearns gets to enact what he originally wanted to do just a year after the fact?
That's a lovely question, Marcus.
With a K.
With a K. I think he nailed it as far as this is David Stearns' team now. And this is the first time he's really put a stamp on it.
Yeah.
But I disagree. I think he put a stamp on his ideology in that 2024 season. That team was not meant to compete.
Right.
That team was meant to have pieces to trade. They were meant to have like a fun team that fans enjoy watching and gathering around. They just became magical.
Yeah.
And the part about David Stearns' signature for me during that season is he bought in. He understood that the possibilities of what could go, and he allowed them to make just one of my favorite seasons I've ever been a part of. That was tremendous. I've been a part of teams where they were like, you know what? We had a plan. We're going to sell. He could have sold easily,
yeah,
and we would have understood. It would have been a tough pill to swallow as a fan, as a team. He would have lost a lot of the clubhouse, but I've seen GMs do that. It happens a lot where they trade away a guy even though they're competing and add a different guy. Like, he showed me that he has the guts to identify what's happening. He has a plan, but it doesn't always go according to plan. So he put a signature on his willingness to win when it presents itself. But this is the first time that the roster is his.
Yeah.
There's some holdovers. Obviously, he didn't sign Lindor, that kind of thing. But I think you can make do with a player like Francisco Lindor.
Yeah.
I am excited to see what happens. There's no questions anymore on who's in charge, whose team it is. This is something, and it takes such guts to put yourself out there like that. It would have been so easy to sign Pete back. It would have been a lot easier to sign Edwin Diaz back, which I think is the right move for Diaz. I understand Pete. We have a lot of pieces to fill, but this is the long game. He's here to win, to build a perennial winner, and he's going to do it in the way he thinks is best, which is not overextending himself on older starting pitchers, signing guys to long terms. He's going to try to find shortcuts. It's a Sean Manaea, a Frankie Montas that didn't work. Manaea hasn't looked great, but Clay Holmes was a beautiful addition. He's going to find ways to add it, and he's going to sign guys that are young to long-term deals to try to solidify that. I admire the fact that he's put it out there. He's not going to, whatever happens with the Mets while he's at the helm, he can't point to anyone else and say, well, it was this holdover and I was stuck with that and I didn't get to pull the trigger here. He's adopted it to himself, and whether you believe it or not, we're going to watch it unfold over the next, 5-6 years.
Yeah, your last point there took the words out of my mouth. There's no one else to blame now. Like, this is David Stearns' team, so
or
with
to
that control,
congratulate and thank.
Yes, exactly. And I think when there's no one else to blame, it's cool because that Stearns has this amount of control, probably the original amount of control he was promised when he took the job. But there's also the added pressure of okay, well, the team that you build needs to contend, maybe not in the short term, but it needs to be a sustainable perennial contender, which is something that Mets fans have been promised. And while we've seen competitive teams, we've seen an 101 win team, we've seen a team that went to the NLCS. It's never really felt consistent. It's always kind of felt chaotic. You know, the entire 2020s decade, you can pretty much surmise as being total chaos from the Mets. But I like what you said about the 2024 season, because yes, on July 21st, the Mets were 2 games over 500. They were 12 and a half out of the division. So the division was gone. And they were just in the mix of this thick wild card race that had 6 or 7 teams in it. And that was the point where the Mets bought. They got Jesse Winker. They got some arms for the bullpen, Phil Maton. And those pieces ended up helping them greatly down the stretch and contributed to key wins that they needed. Whereas they could have sold. And I think a lot of people, when you look at, you know, their May record and their June winning streak, I still think selling was in the back of everyone's minds, and the Mets would have been a great seller. You know, they had Jose Quintana, they had Sean Manaea in his career year, a couple of position players here or there. You know, they had Pete Alonso, JD Martinez. Like, there was a ton of pieces that the Mets could, and that was, I remember, a very productive deadline for teams that were selling. That teams that were selling did very well for themselves that deadline. But the Mets saw an opportunity to compete. I'm sure Steve Cohen had his influence there as well, but David Stearns was ultimately the decision maker. And I want to mention Steve Cohen here as well, because I see a lot of people, when they mention David Stearns, they show his unwillingness to sign long-term deals, and they kind of write off Juan Soto as that was all Steve Cohen. I don't think it was all Steve Cohen. I think it was greatly influenced. Obviously, you'd be naive to not think Steve Cohen is not in the room putting his stamp on the conversation, as well as his wife. But also, David Stearns has to be the one that signs off and negotiates and gets the final number there. And he's in that room as well. And I think that was valuable experience for David Stearns when picking and choosing what people he's going to bring in for these massive, massive commitments. Because when I look at this free agent market, I don't really want the Mets to make that commitment to Kyle Tucker. I don't really want the Mets to even make that commitment to Cody Bellinger. But 10 times out of 10, I am signing Juan Soto to that deal, because without Juan Soto, there is no direction of this franchise. If nothing else, if you have an offseason like this one that is disappointing from a fan service perspective, losing Pete and losing Diaz, if nothing else, Juan Soto is on your team for 15 years. You can figure it out when you have that guy as a cornerstone. And David Stearns is a key piece of that. And nothing really can change my mind, even with, you know, fan sentiment kind of turning on him in the past couple of weeks. So we'll see. I'm excited, though. I've turned fully from disappointment to excitement, because if nothing else, the Mets have to be active for the rest of the offseason.
I love that. I think you said it correctly. I think Juan Soto is the guy that they went after. And I think that's David Stearns. I think Steve Cohen, I think one of his greatest assets, and I've heard it from a lot of people, he understands talent. And he identified David Stearns as a talent. He trusts that he knows more about baseball than Steve Cohen.
Yeah.
And he puts those guys. Obviously, he has to sign the check and he has to sign off. Juan Soto. I'm dropping. Who's the Japanese pitcher that went to L.A.?
Oh, Yoshinobu Yamamoto.
Yamamoto was a guy that
the Mets were ready to commit, $325 million there, and I would have done it. Like, absolutely.
100%. That was a guy. There's a lot of age into the contract that hamstrings a lot of teams that go through that. They identify and target. So, what would I think you nailed it. So I just wanted to reemphasize that. Sure. They have guys in mind that they're targeting. Yamamoto would have been great, and they lost out on him. Juan Soto, they weren't letting go. Excuse me. What would be your length of contract limit for Kyle Tucker?
Like my personal, or what I think the Mets are offering?
What would you, if you were David Stearns and you had Steve Cohen's money, what would be your, like, not the top end, but what would be your year pitch for Kyle Tucker to be worth it for you? Because he's going to be going into his age 29 season. I
would do 6 years, and I would just crush the competition in AAV. I think that the Mets have done a lot of short-term high AAV. Juan Soto is an untypical case where it's long-term high AAV. With Tucker, he's been minimum a 4 WAR player for 5 years in a row. I don't know what he ages like, but I do know that he has a ton of tools that are great. But at the same time, I understand that the team that probably is going to get Kyle Tucker is the team that goes to that 7, 8, 9 years even that I think it requires to sign a superstar like that. And I just don't think Kyle Tucker is as good as Juan Soto. And I also think that it kind of lands you back in the same position you were in before with Nimmo, where you have kind of not a negative defender, but if he's a league average defender right now, what's he going to look like in 6 years? And then you clog your DH and all this stuff. So it really comes down to, is it worth the price of building a team that is not necessarily in David Stearns' vision? I think Juan Soto was the price for sure, because Juan Soto is not a good defender. He's going to be a DH, but he's also a generational hitter that you need to really compete for a World Series. You need that level of hitter in your lineup. I think Winker is a really, really good player, but I don't think you can afford two of them. And I don't think the Mets want two of those kinds of players in their lineup. So for me, it would be 6 years high AV. If he takes it, great. If not, you find options elsewhere.
Interesting. I'm almost in the same boat. I think Kyle Tucker is one of the best players in the game, but the length of contract scares me. And
Yep.
I think that's where they're going. I think I'm in 100% agreement on where you're at.
And we'll see how his market shakes out, because I think we're having a classic case of Kyle Tucker's being called not worth it by so many people that he's somehow becoming underrated, because Kyle Tucker's a really fucking good player. Like, the Mets would be immediately a division contender, I think, if they added him. It's just they need to add him on terms that make sense for what they're trying to do with this roster. And what they're trying to do with this roster is not commit long-term to any payroll beyond 2028, which is right now just Soto, Lindor, and Semien, and find guys in the short-term window that complement the team with run prevention and can also hit at minimum a league average rate. And Tucker supersedes that league average rate. He's a negative defensive asset long-term, and you're going to need to sign him long-term if you want to add him to this team. So I just don't think this free agent market complements the Mets' needs very well. So maybe they trade. I don't know what they do. But I do think that David Stearns getting the opportunity to build the team in his vision and not necessarily just having to do flyers and experiments to kind of fill holes, hopefully will benefit the Mets long term. But this is the test. This offseason is the test. All right. Well, thank you for that question, Marcus with a K. That led to a pretty good discussion. What time are we at here? We're at 47 minutes. I think we got time for another call or two. Let's go. Oh, I liked this one. This is I wonder if this is an influenced listener of the show. This is also a no-name caller. I'll name this guy Jerry with a G. Because this call reminded me of a lot of things that you've said before.
Okay.
Hey, Jolly. Hey, Jerry. Love the show. Big fan of the way you guys approach things and really tackle issues facing the team honestly. I just wanted to say that I'm absolutely devastated by the Edwin Diaz, Pete Alonso leaving. And I am really calling to say that instead of trading for someone like Tarek Skubal, giving up the whole prospect farm to do it, why not target someone a little closer to home with Luis Severino, who his complete game shutout at the end of 2024 was such an iconic moment, I think, for him and for Mets fans, that I would really love to see him back. And I think that selling the whole thing for someone like Skubal would be a bad idea. Anyway, yeah, thanks for taking the call, and keep it up.
Great question there from Jerry with the G. I'll kind of spin it in a way. It doesn't have to wholly be about Severino, but would you rather see the Mets make a big trade for an ace-level pitcher, or do you think that they would be wiser to make a trade for a pitcher who might just be attached to money and would not take a lot to get the deal done outside of that money?
I love that approach.
Yeah.
It's a low cost of prospects to get a Luis Severino. Severino wants to come back to New York. I like to get out of Sacramento. What does he owe? 2 more years?
2 more years at I think like 21 or something. Let me check.
Yeah, and I think they gave him a bonus. I don't know how it's structured, but it would be a low prospect cost. It wouldn't be just a salary dump. So it would take a piece, and the A's are always looking for young, controllable pieces. I like that approach much more because you can't trade the farm for Skubal and not sign him.
Yeah.
And Lindor had the organization in a checkmate move because they had to sign him for what they gave up.
That's a great example, yeah.
And he held them accountable for it, and I don't think they make that move. I don't think David Stearns rolls the dice there.
Yeah.
So I don't see that happening. If they're going to be in play for Scooble, let him go another year or let it go to the trade deadline and try to scoop it up. But I don't think they're going to overwhelm the Tigers to get Scooble. I don't see a team offering what it's going to take, especially, they're contenders. The Tigers are good.
Yeah.
So it's going to take an overwhelming, like, I would be stupid not to take this deal move for them to get him. Scott Harris is not a stupid man who's running the show over there. So I would love to see a Severino type or a Freddie Peralta. Lesser. Freddie Peralta is a great pitcher.
Yeah.
Severino is another, like, he had a great season with us. I think there's potential there. I think he would be more comfortable. I think it would be a smart move, but I would much rather see a move for a guy that's not going to cost them their future for sure.
Yeah, I'm in that boat as well. I see a lot of people conflating the Scoople situation with Crochet, and it's just different in my mind because Crochet, I think, had 2 or 3 years of arbitration left. He had team control attached to him, and that I think makes the extension getting done so much easier for the team negotiating because, like, if the asking price is, not within reason, you just let it ride for a little bit and see how the guy performs. And if he's an ace, you pay him the money. And if he's not, you roll with arbitration and get the deal that you want. With Scooble, the pressure's on immediately because he's coming off back-to-back Cy Youngs. He's got 1 year left, and he's going to cost you a king's ransom. Do you have something else you want to add?
No, I was just going to say it is so different than the Crochet deal.
Yeah.
Crochet had some injury issues. He was a reliever. He hadn't had that ceiling, like you mentioned, with the back-to-back. I mean, Scooble's the best pitcher in baseball.
Yeah.
Like, there's no question. I know Skeens is there, but to me, it's Scooble. Skeens is underneath that. He hasn't, on a contender, like whatever the case may be, he doesn't push as deep as Scooble often. But Crochet was like in that weird limbo of like this was his first year starting for the White Sox. He was in a terrible situation in Chicago. He wanted out. He had team control, so it is very different with the years left. Scooble would be silly to take a Crochet type deal because it's not a gamble for him to say
Right.
no to that money because he's going to get it regardless.
Someone will pay him that money. With Severino, the reason I took this call, you might look at Severino's numbers and go, okay, the guy was, replacement level, 4.5 ERA, gave up, what was his home run per nine? Home run per nine of 1, like all the stuff with like velo, whatever. Severino's home ERA and away ERA, 6 at home, which is Sutter Health. That's a minor league ballpark, 10 home runs in 82 innings. ERA of 3.02 on the road, 14 starts, way less home runs, similar amount of innings. His whip drops from 1.5 to 1.07. I don't know. I buy into that. I don't think that's a fluke at all. And I'm sure the A's would love to, since they've avoided their grievance because they spent a little bit of money last offseason, I'm sure they'd love to rid themselves of that money immediately. It's $25 million for this year and then a $22 million player option. So in a perfect world, Severino gets traded here, performs to the level he did the year before with us in 2024, and then opts out and gets another deal. And who knows where he goes from there, but you get one good year of Severino, and you probably would not have to give up a lot in return. I think that caliber of move, not even necessarily Severino, but guys like Peralta, guys that are rentals, I think is way more realistic for what the Mets are trying to approach in the 2026 season. So great call there from Jerry with a G. And I do think that is going to be our last call as we come up on an hour here in our show. Thank you once again if you left a voicemail. I'm so sorry if we did not get to your voicemail. A bunch of people left a lot of great questions. I heard Tarek Skubal. I heard Ketel Marte. I heard Paul Skeens even in one call. I heard Cody Bellinger. I heard all these names. And it's cool that, if nothing else, the world is full of possibilities for the 2026 Mets right now. And hopefully one of those possibilities is realized. But thank you so much for listening to our show. Thank you so much for tuning into the last episode and making it the most viewed episode of Shea Station ever. Really, really just want to hammer that home. That is so cool, guys. I know it takes a lot of big news to get those numbers, but it's still cool that people came to us to hear what we had to say, even after all this time. Jerry, you got anything else for the show today?
I just want to touch on Paul Skeens. Paul Skeens is closer to Crochet. He's like the blend between Scooble and Crochet.
Yeah.
He's more established. He's elite. He has a sub-2 career ERA, which is insane, but he's only had one full season. I think he made 23 starts in 24 and 32 last year. 133 innings his first year, 187 and 2/3 last year. That would be more of the trade the farm for him,
Yeah.
and then sign him, because if you put out an offer that's close to what he's going to get in free agency with this much team control, that would be an interesting move. I still love that to happen. I can still see that possibility. He's 23. He's going to be an age 24 season. That makes a lot of sense for me. I don't know what the Pirates are going to do. I have no idea what their plans are. It would take a lot, but he would be the guy that would be worth it. He's much younger. He's got years of control that are good leverage for the organization to sign him long term. I still think that's a possibility. I might be insane for that, but I still think that's a possibility. Maybe not this year. Maybe that's the next year. Who knows what it is? But I would love that. But thank you guys so much for all your calls, all your questions. That was a really fun discussion for me to have with you, Jolly, because of those questions, the way they were kind of, diverse. So good job selecting those.
Hey, no problem.
Thank you guys to the listeners. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, voicemail episodes are always my favorite. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's the Paul Skeens thing is going to happen, but it would be crazy. I more so think about what number is Scooble going to get? What number is Skeens going to get when eventually they get to decide where they want to go or sign an extension with someone they want to stay with? It's going to be interesting, but I do like the Mets in those bidding wars because, like we said before, when the Mets enter bidding wars, it's usually for the right person, like Yamamoto, like Soto. And when those players come around, it's comforting to know that the Mets will be involved in those discussions at the very least, which not a lot of teams can say they will be. All right, Mets fans, hopefully time has been healing a little bit of your wounds. There's probably more moves to come. I'm sure we'll be back on these mics eventually sometime soon. Enjoy your holiday season. Happy Hanukkah to those who celebrate. Merry Christmas to those who are going to celebrate that. drinkfieldoftdreamswhiskey.com. Get yourself a bottle. Get that gift done. Only 9 days until Christmas. You're going to need to get a gift if you haven't already, and we got you covered there. So we appreciate you all. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time in LFGM.
Let's go Mets.